Explainer: Fixed exchange rate versus government price fixing. When multiple countries participate in a gold standard, it is typical to say their governments have adopted a regime of fixed exchange rates, where the various sovereign currencies trade against each other in constant ratios. In contrast, economists such as Milton Friedman have written persuasive essays making the case for flexible or floating exchange rates, in which governments don't intervene in currency markets, but rather let supply and demand determine how many pesos trade for a dollar. Part of Friedman's arguments is that when governments do try to fix the value of their currency, usually propping it above the market clearing level, it leads to a glut of the domestic, overvalued currency and shortage of undervalued foreign exchange. So if economists are opposed to price fixing when it comes to the minimum wage and rent control, shouldn't they also oppose it in the currency markets? Although Friedman himself obviously understood the nuance, this type of reasoning might mislead the average reader. Under a gold standard, government don't use coercion to fix exchange rate between different currencies. So the policy here is nothing at all like government setting minimum wage or maximum apartment rents when the fixing is accomplished through fines and or prison time levied on individuals who transact outside of the officially approved range of price. Instead, under a gold standard, each government makes the standing over to the world to redeem its own paper currency in a specified weight of gold. This over is completely voluntary. No one in the community has to exchange currency notes for gold. People merely have the option of doing so. However, given the two different governments pledge to redeem their respective currencies in definite weights of gold, it is a simple calculation to determine the fixed exchange rate between these two currencies. For example, in the year 1913, near the end of the era of the classical gold standard, the British government stood ready to redeem its currency at the rate of £4.25 per ounce of gold, while the US government would redeem its currency at the rate of approximately $20.67 per ounce of gold. These respective policies implied, using simple arithmetic, that the exchange rate between the currencies was fixed at about $4.86 per British pound. Yet this ratio wasn't maintained by coercion, and the actual market exchange rate of dollars per pound did in fact deviate from the anchor point of $4.86. It is just that if the market exchange rate moved too far in either direction, it would eventually become profitable for currency speculators to ship gold from one country to the other, in a series of trades that would push the market exchange rate back toward the fixed anchor point. To see how this works, suppose that the US government back in 1913 began printing new dollars very rapidly. Other things equal, this would reduce the value of the dollar against the British pound. Suppose that when all of the new dollars flooded into the economy, rather than the usual $4.86 to buy a British pound, the price had been bid up to $10. At this price, there would be an enormous arbitrage opportunity. Specifically, a speculator could start out with $2,067 and present it to the US government, which would be obligated to hand over 100 ounces of gold. Then the speculator could ship the 100 ounces of gold across the ocean to London, where the gold could be exchanged with the British authorities for £425. Finally, the speculator could take his £425 to the foreign exchange market, where he could trade them for $4,250, because in this example, we suppose that the dollar price of British pound had been bid up to $10 in the forex market. Thus, in this simple tale, our speculator started out with $2,067 and transformed it into $4,250, less the fees involved in shipping. Besides reaping a large profit, the speculator's action in our tale would also have the following effects. A. They would then got out of US government vaults, providing the American authority with a motivation to stop with the reckless dollar printing. B. They would add gold reserve to British government vault, providing the British authorities with the ability to safely print more British pounds, and C, they will tend to push the dollar price of British pounds down, moving it from $10 back toward the anchor price of $4.86. To be sure, I've exaggerated the numbers in this simple example to keep the arithmetic easier. In reality, as the dollar weakened against the British pound, it would hit the gold export point well before reaching $10. Through the arbitrage process we explained above, whenever the actual market exchange rate stray too far above the $4.86 anchor, automatic forces would set in causing gold to flow out of US vaults and push the market exchange rate back toward the fixed rate. This process would happen in reverse if the exchange rate fell too far below the $4.86 anchor and crossed the gold import point. Gold would flow out of the United Kingdom and into American vaults and set in motion process that would push the exchange rate back up toward the anchor point. We have spent considerable time on this mechanism to be sure the reader understands exactly what it means to say there were fixed exchange rate under the classical gold standard. To repeat, these were not based on government coercion and did not constitute price fixing by the government. No shortage of foreign exchange occur under a genuine gold standard because exchange rates are always freely floating, market clearing rates. It is difficult for us, growing up in a world of fiat money, to appreciate the fact, but historically people view gold and silver as the actual money, with sovereign currencies being defined as weights of the precious metals. As Rothbard explains, we might say that the exchange rate between the various countries under the classical gold standard were thereby fixed, but these were not so much exchange rates as they were various units of weight of gold, fixed ineluctably as soon as the respective definition of weight were established. To say that the government arbitrarily fixed the exchange rate of the various currencies is to say also that governments arbitrarily define 1 pound weight as equal to 16 ounces or 1 foot as equal to 12 inches, or arbitrarily define the dollar as composed of 10 dimes and 100 cents. Like all weights and measures, such definitions do not have to be imposed by government. They could, at least in theory, have been set by groups of scientists or by custom and commonly accepted by general public. In concluding this section, we can agree with Milton Friedman that in a world of government issuing their respective fiat money, coercive government ceilings or floor in the foreign exchange market, enforced through fines and or prison sentence, will lead to the familiar problem characteristic of all price controls. As Rothbard considered, the only thing worse than fluctuating exchange rate is fixed exchange rate based on fiat money and international coordination. However, the advocates of a genuine international gold standard stress that its underlying regime of implied fixed exchange rate would be even better, because it would effectively allow individuals around the world to benefit from the use of common money. That is to say, for all the reasons that domestic commerce within the United States is furthered through the common use of dollar, commerce and especially long-term investment within countries will be enhanced when no one has to worry about fluctuating exchange rate on top of the other variables.